Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today's video I wanted to discuss about what is truly the best split for a beginner or a novice to be following. As I often see a lot of times, people don't really understand what they need to be doing when they're new to this industry. They're a new trainee, and they don't really know what kind of training split to follow. And a majority of the time it's very prevalent to see these individuals jumping into the bro splits, and those bro splits being the single musculature body parts, that being a chest day, a back day, a shoulder day, an arm day, and a leg day, which is completely irrelevant and contrary to what they should actually be doing. So I wanted to try and make it a little bit more clearer as to what beginner trainers should be doing and why they should be doing it. So let's say if you are somebody who's new, you've been training for a short period of time, that could be anywhere from 6 weeks to even a couple of years. So when I say new trainers, I don't mean those who have only just started training, like have just stepped into the gym for the very first time. I'm even talking about these individuals that are 2 years of experience. You're still a beginner trainee. You still got a lot of work to do and experience to accumulate. So I would class anybody from 6 weeks up to 2 years as a novice and a beginner trainer still. So if you're one of these individuals, it's referring to you. So for those specific demographics, I would say that the best approach would be higher frequency. So something like ideally a full body split. I've used this in the past with some of my clients, and I have noticed that a lot of the clients, they just can't become accustomed to it. They don't really like it. It's not their preference. So if you don't like the full body split, which I definitely should always say that should be your initial approach, it would be something like an upper and lower split. That's always my go-to when it comes to my initial clients that I start working with. I always automatically put them straight onto an upper and lower split, so that way they can train their musculatures more frequently, and so that they can expose their musculatures to more stimuli across the week. So to put in perspective why I think this is the best approach going forward is because when you're a new trainer, right, the challenge required to create that novel stimulus is very, very low. It's not that challenging, So you can see some newbies, they're going into the gym and their max is around about, and we're going to use a compound here as an example. They could be doing like a deadlift of 80 kilos. That could be their max. That's not that challenging, but that's still creating that novel stimulus, and it's still forcing that adaptation. So they have no choice but to grow and recruit hypertrophy. But that level intensity isn't that high, so their RPE isn't that high, so it's not going to be like neurally fatiguing on like the central nervous system or anything like that. So they can train more frequently. So when we're looking at like all the three main compounds, the bench press, deadlifts and squat, essentially anybody who is a new trainer, they can get away with doing a squat 3 times a week, doing bench press 3 times a week, or deadlifting 3 times a week. You might want to change the variations, but essentially you could always get away with those 3 compounds 3 times a week, maybe even 4 for some individuals. Because like I said, their level of intensity and the challenge required isn't as challenging as somebody who is like an intermediate or an elite trainee. So when we're looking like in comparison to like elite athletes, for them to create that novel stimulus, we know that the main driver for hypertrophy is volume, but we also need progressive overload at the same time. We need to progress the weight and the load. This is just to prevent things like accumulating 50, 60 reps. We don't want to get to the point where we're doing 50 reps on one set. So how we do it, like periodically going up, is you up the reps and then you up the load and then up the reps and then up the loads. So when we're looking at elite athletes, and again we'll use a compound movement as an example here, you got an elite athlete who's doing a deadlift variation, that be an RDL or anything like that. They're lifting like 300 kilos, yeah? That is going to be extremely taxing on, you know, it's going to be like local fatigue on the actual musculature, and it's going to have like systemic fatigue, and it's going to be neurally fatiguing as well. It's going to impact everything. It's going to impact their peripheral. It's going to impact their central nervous system. It's going to impact their whole entire body, because that weight and that challenge is extremely high. But in comparison to a novice trainer who's only lifting 80 kilos or even 100 kilos max, that isn't that taxing. So they can get away with that. That's going to create that novel stimulus. They're going to adapt and they're going to grow off of that 100 kilo deadlift. But then they're able to recover efficiently to be able to do it again on the Wednesday. If you've got the elite athlete who's, you know, doing the deadlift on a Monday, or the RD or whatever it is, and he's doing 300 kilos and he has 2 sets, there's no way in hell that he's going to be able to perform those same sets again and progress on either reps or load on Wednesday. Hell no. Unless he's taken abundance amount of drugs, which I do not recommend. But even then, I would still say that the likelihood of him being able to perform that again and replicate the same set and load, or even progress on the Wednesday, is very slim. They need longer. So that's when you look at maybe adjusting their split, so they're training less frequently on those specific musculatures. But when you're a beginner, you can get away with it. So you can train more frequently because your ability to create that novel stimulus isn't that challenging. So you only need minimum amount of weight and minimum amount of repetitions. And then because that strain and that challenge isn't as challenging, you can recover more efficiently to train more frequently. So this is why I think it's absolutely imperative that if you are a beginner trainer, and like I said, from 6 weeks to 2 years, to be following these upper and lower splits, train more frequently. And think of it like this: across a week, if you're following a single body part routine, so you're training chest on one day, you're training back on one day, and you're training, you know, shoulders and arms on another day, yeah? Across a month, you're exposing your chest to a stimulus only 4 times. But if you were to change your split and did like an upper lower, or you did upper lower, however way you want to do it, you're potentially doubling the amount of exposure that you're creating to that stimulus on each individual musculature. That makes more sense. So across a month, 4 weeks, instead of only hitting your chest once or exposing it to that stimulus once, you're exposing it to it twice or even 3 times. You know, it makes more sense, in my opinion. And I say because these newbies and these beginners, they can get away with doing that. Because, you know, essentially for a beginner trainer, their minimum effective volume, which means essentially, in lack of better terms, it's just easy money. It's your ability to be able to actually create an effective response and adaptation with minimum amount of effort. That's free money. So you're getting free gains with very little effort. But the problem is everybody thinks that they have to go into every session and annihilate themselves. They have to like literally kill themselves to their walk, like crawling out of the gym. That's not the case. Eventually you will get to that point where you have to, and I can guarantee when you are actually at that point and you're like that elite athlete having to do the 300 kilo deadlift, I bet you'll be regretting it then. Take advantage of that minimum effective volume. As you're a beginner, you don't need to, you know, create that much of a challenge to recruit that hypertrophy that you're looking for and you're seeking to achieve. Get away with that easy money, those easy gains, and then gradually build yourself into it. And this takes time. When I say gradually build yourself into a more of like a bro split sort of thing, I'm not talking about give it a couple of months or a year. You're talking at least like 5 years for each phases. I would always say like a beginner trainer that I work with, a beginner client that I work with, I would get them on an upper lower split, and we'll probably stay on that for like 5 years, providing that I'm with that client for 5 years. And only then I will start looking at transitioning over to a different split, and that might be like a push-pull split. and then eventually transitioning into like a single musculature session. But that's only if they reach like the pro league level. When they're at the elite level, that's when you can look at that. And the reason being is because when you're looking at trying to hit single musculatures on a single session, it's because you're trying to add that fine detail, because you have that overall density and muscularity that you need and is required, but now you're just trying to fine tune little areas. So you might need to bring up your rear delts a little bit more, and you might need to bring up your triceps a little bit more, and the bicep peak might need a little bit more work. So then that's when you can have a dedicated day that's biasing just towards arms and just towards the rear delts. But that's literally 10-15 years down the line. If you're someone from, if you fit the criteria of 6 weeks to 2 years of training, get away from these bro splits. Get into the gym more frequently, and you don't need to be literally pounding and pounding and pounding yourselves to the ground. Get away with that minimum effective volume. Go in and out. They would say that the minimum effective volume is around about 10 sets per musculature for somebody who's a beginner to hit your minimum effective volume. So if you put in perspective, if it is, and this is just a hypothesis, if it is 10 sets across a week for just your chest, that's essentially around about 3 sets per each session for your chest. That's all you need. And then each week you can gradually add in another set, add in another set, add in another set until you hit your MRV, so on and so on and so on. But that's a different topic to talk about, volume landmarks. But do it that way. Get away with that minimum effective volume first. It's little work that you need, but you will grow and you will adapt off of it. You just have to be patient and you have to trust the process. So if you are a newbie out there, if you are a beginner and you're somebody who is a little bit confused on what you should be doing, hopefully this video helps you out. And if you are that individual who is following a bro split, stop it now. Get away from it and start trying to train more frequently. Start off with either, like I said, a full body split. Full body is absolutely brilliant, but sometimes it's really hard to to adapt to that kind of training. It is very challenging, it is very difficult, and it's not to everybody's preference. But if you don't like that, then look at like an upper lower split, and then eventually progress further. So like I say, hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Drop some comments down below if you have any questions, and I'll happily answer them to the best of my ability. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Cheers.